Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my Karen neighbor is demanding a copy of my apartment key. So I recently moved into my new apartment complex less than 60 days ago. There are only 4 units in my complex, 2 downstairs and 2 upstairs. I reside downstairs in the second apartment. Everyone here has lived here for at least 5 years, whilst the oldest resident has lived here for 8. Everyone knows everyone and has been good friends with each other for as long as each one has been a resident. Everyone in my building has kids besides me, and the majority are single mothers. I'm the only man. Apparently, there's an unspoken agreement I at first had no knowledge of between the other tenants that the hallway door is to never be locked. No one ever locks the hallway door. That was until I arrived. From my knowledge, no one in the building has a hallway key, just the keys to their own apartments. The cost to replace a key is $70, quoted from my landlord. I just finished up my place and have officially moved in for about 3 weeks now. Each time I leave and come back from my complex, I always lock the hallway door. It's always been important to lock all doors around me. My neighbor that works night shift has arrived home for the past couple of weeks to a locked hallway door, which is a surprise given that the door hasn't been locked for years. Apparently, everyone lost their key their first year or so living in the complex. I will hear continuous knocking and banging until someone comes to open the door. The first few nights I was awakened and I got up to unlock the door. After the first week, I've since stopped answering and my neighbor will get up to go unlock it to let our other neighbor in. If my neighbor isn't home or doesn't wake up to come to the door, she will knock and bang on every window and yell until someone comes to open the door. Yesterday, my neighbor asked if I could please leave the door unlocked, given that it's always been that way and they would like me to continue doing so. I expressed that while we live in a dangerous neighborhood, rated one of the top 5 most dangerous in our city, I feel more safe knowing strangers can't enter our building. While she understood my concerns, she assured me no one ever comes here other than residents and their visitors, and my safety is not to worry about. I had to beg to differ. She then asks would I mind lending her my hall key so she can make a copy and let others make their own copy from hers. I politely declined because I wasn't comfortable with that. She offered to pay me to make a copy myself, and which I also declined. For the past week, my neighbors have barely spoken to me. We usually tell each other good morning and chat a little bit, or just say hi or bye, but not even that nowadays. My neighbor, whom volunteers at the food bank in our community, would come back with goodies and share with everyone in the complex. And she no longer knocks on my door to offer me a box as she usually did every Wednesday. I don't care for the food, but the change in this routine leads me to believe I may have upset the rest of the tenants, and I honestly don't want any bad blood. So, my understanding is that this is a communal hallway leading to individual apartment entrances, and the doors to individual apartments can be locked? I don't understand why you wouldn't let them copy your hallway key if that's the case, to be honest. It costs like $3 to $5. You're the jerk. Not always. Some high security keys can be expensive, but it doesn't matter as he's not being asked to pay for it. You're the jerk. You live in a dangerous neighborhood and you're making it so your neighbors are trapped outside at night. You aren't participating in letting them in despite knowing that you locked them out, and you refuse to get them a copy of the communal door key even though they're happy to pay for it. Dude, you suck. Counterpoint, why has everyone else lost their high security door key? Landlords should charge them all to replace the lock. That's a serious concern. If they pay you for a copy, I don't see what your issue is. It's $70 for the landlord to do it, so it would be cheaper if you did it for everyone. If you want that community and connection, then you have to give a little to get a little back. You're the jerk. Am I the jerk for jumping out of the way when my niece and nephew tried to push me into the pool? Plus updates. My folks decided to host a barbecue because I guess that's what older people do. I declined because I really don't like my 2 sisters, their husbands or their kids. Wife and I are child-free. Mom then pressured my wife. Long story short, we went. By the time we arrived, there were about 20 people there. My sisters and their husbands were already solidly buzzed, drunk really. My mom was spending 100% of her time trying to keep the nieces and nephews, ages 7 to 11, more or less under control. My dad had strategically retreated to the whirlpool part of the pool with small cooler full of beers. Wife and I made small talk with miscellaneous people, ate food, and we had a frozen margarita. Sisters and brother-in-laws took turns criticizing us for being late, not being in our swimsuits, and messing up the vibe. Whatever. Typical suburban summer get-together. About 45 minutes in, 2 of the kids ran at one of the neighbor guests who was standing next to the pool and pushed her in. She was at the pool steps, stumbled in, but didn't really fall, so only got half wet. She was clearly very unhappy about it, but she didn't make a scene. Just went over to where the parents were, grabbed their towels, dried herself off, and left. Sisters and brother-in-laws thought it was funny. A bit later, I was standing a few feet away from the pool, chatting away with someone. I saw 3 of the kids running full tilt at me from the corner of my eye. Obviously, I was next. Not that it's terribly difficult to outwit the kids, but I just jumped out of their way at the last second. All 3 of them ran straight into the pool at full speed. Most of the other guests, including my wife and me, started laughing, but their moms, who as I mentioned were pretty buzzed, absolutely freaked out. Apparently, 2 of the kids couldn't even swim. Since I wasn't in swim gear, I stepped back from the pool and let other people fish them out. The little brats were bawling their heads off. At that point, all heck broke loose. The 4 drunk parents were yelling at everyone in general, and me in particular for what I had done, and also because 2 of the kids had been videoing the trick using their parents' iPhones, which were now at the bottom of the pool. One of my brother-in-laws got into the pool to try to retrieve the phones, but his BMI and BAC made that impossible. No one else volunteered to help, unsurprising given that my sisters were still jerks to everyone. I told my sisters it was their job to watch their kids, and that if anything had happened to them, it would have been their responsibility, not mine. There were some pretty strong words on both sides. Wife and I left after the other brother-in-law fell over and face-planted while yelling at us. Now they're saying I should have let the kids knock me into the pool and have their fun, and ruin my phone. So, am I the jerk? Side note, Dad, of course, never got out of the whirlpool. Edit. I realize that they're just kids and they were just having fun. The fact that they thought this was okay is more of a reflection of their parents than them. Just wish we hadn't gone. It's nice to see my folks and their neighbors, but I really don't like my sisters or their husbands. They don't hide their envy of us, and they're just exhausting to be around. I've never been close to my sisters. They're 8 and 10 years older than me. I also don't have much in common with their husbands. They're okay guys, but I just don't give a hoot about the things that are important to them and vice versa. I do know that the 4 of them are somewhat envious of our lifestyle. Both the sisters are stay-at-home moms. Both the husbands make good money. One makes noticeably more than I do. But both my wife and I have professional careers, we don't have kids, and we are way more responsible with money. As a result, we have a lot more investments, etc. And we don't have to drive cars full of kid debris, and we take nice trips once or twice a year. It definitely grates on both sisters and by extension their husbands. So we get some petty behavior from them on an ongoing basis. Neither my wife nor I enjoy their company, which is why I wanted to skip the get-together. Just not worth it to me. But my wife is a positive person and is usually happy to see them. Hopefully next time your wife won't feel guilted into going. That's probably the one positive thing that will come out of this. Wife is much more tolerant and forgiving than I am towards my siblings, but based on what she was saying on the way home, I think she's had it with them as well. Your dad sounds awesome. Yeah, he's very chill. He loves being around groups of people. He used to be in sales. He likes people to enjoy themselves and is definitely enjoying life as a retiree. He and 2 other guys with him just sat there and watched the show. Mom's cool too, but the situation upset her. Update. After we left, the party ended on a pretty sour note. My drunk brother-in-law who face-planted while yelling at me had to go to urgent care and get his face stitched up. He was too toasted to drive, so Dad took him. Dad was very not happy about this. Later that evening, my sisters started a group text and said some really nasty things. Their husbands threw in a few comments as well. Wife and I blocked the 4 of them. My mom called me, and she was pretty upset about what they had said. She and Dad were in the chat, and I don't blame her. Because of the texts, my folks insisted my sisters and brother-in-laws come over the next day, Sunday, without their kids to get some things straight and lay down some ground rules, Mom's wording. The result was a contrite, if unenthusiastic, apology from the siblings via my mom's phone. I'm glad my wife was with me when they called. Her hard stares kept me from saying things I wanted to. I just told them thanks and that we felt no need to discuss it further. Since I thought things were settled, I unblocked them. That evening, I got a text from one of my brother-in-laws telling me that the phones cost them this much money and asking if I'd be paying for them. What? I replied, never. Took a screenshot of his message and sent it to my folks with a note that we were done with this nonsense. We're going no contact with sisters and their spouses and not to invite us to any more holidays or get-togethers if they'll be there. Then I blocked my sisters and their spouses again. At that point, crap really hit the fan. Dad called them and laid into them. Among other things, he told them that grandkids were not welcome at his place indefinitely. Since my mom regularly provides free babysitting, that got them pretty rattled. He also banned them from using the vacation house and told them my wife and I actually own it, not he and mom. This completely freaked them out. Both of my sister's families use that place a lot, including having their friends up there for weekend getaways. This was very much out of character for my folks. They'd clearly had it. And for reference, I never wanted my sisters to know that we owned the place. We bought it for my folks. They had always wanted a place in the mountains. Keeping the ownership quiet was just a way to avoid drama with my siblings. A couple of days later, my sisters and their husbands came to our place unannounced to apologize in person. We were out to dinner and they left a note. One sister also called me at work too. I sent her a voicemail. We've decided being no contact is the best thing for the indefinite future and haven't interacted with them for at least 3+ weeks. Personally, I'm done. They can buzz off. Update. It's been less than a month, but I have to say that blocking them has actually made our lives noticeably more peaceful. I hadn't realized how much ongoing low-level drama they create. It's not toxic, they're not bad people, they're just tiresome and petty. And I personally don't care about them using the weekend place. It's ours technically, but we bought it for my folks. They control it and they decide who uses it when they're not there. We pay for all of the operating costs and taxes. One good thing about this blow-up is that we now know what we'll be doing with the property once my folks get older. I was prepared to take over managing it, allocating weekends, maintaining it and such, but now we know we'll just sell it, and if we want to go up to the mountains, we'll just rent an Airbnb. OP's wife held a talent show at their wedding reception. Now she's jealous of her friend's performance. I, male 28, knew her since college, and I'll get that out of the way first. The past few days have shown a different side of her that's a little surprising because Kate is her best friend from college. My wife, Nancy, wanted to do a mini talent show at our reception, and she talked it up beforehand too. She read a poem that she made for the event, and Kate performed a song that she wrote. Long story short, one of the guests who I invited is into producing, and he reached out to her after she performed. They exchanged information, and Kate was really excited. He wanted to network with her following the reception, and she even thanked my wife for hosting the talent show over text. But Nancy became really bitter about it, and that's why I'm writing this. She hasn't responded to Kate's message, but she said that she regretted doing the talent show. She also asked me to block Edward, the producer, on my socials and contacts, and I told her that seemed a bit much. She didn't like my answer and said that I was wrong to not take her side after just getting married, but I told her she should be happy for her friend. She didn't like that either and vented to some in our friend group about how Kate was bragging, but some of them disagreed. She said she didn't want to hang out with them anymore for the time being, and that included me too. Two of her girlfriends even texted me that she was overreacting and that they were also surprised to see her acting this way. They also asked if she was okay too. My dad is suggesting counseling and said that asking me to remove friends is an unhealthy way to start a marriage, and I'm honestly more than a little scared. I asked if she'd be open to counseling, but she said there was no need because Kate was her friend first, and I shouldn't choose Kate over her. I just want to ask what to do next since she refused counseling and sees no issue with cutting off our friends. Edit. I want to add that Nancy complained that her poem didn't get as good of a reception as Kate's song. Kate didn't study music in college, but practices on the side, and her text was really thankful for the opportunity that the talent show provided. Kate is also engaged to her longtime boyfriend. Update. It's been a little over 2 weeks since my first post, and I've had some time to try and process. A lot of it still feels surreal, having known her since my early 20s and the 180 after the wedding. I want to address a few things that were asked in my first post before getting to the update. Nancy and Kate were not the only ones who performed at the talent show. During planning, Nancy said she wanted to showcase her friends and how awesome and proud she was to have them. She also said it was a bonding thing between her girlfriends from our friend group, and the girls were the ones who performed. However, given her post-reception 180, it really surprised me in comparison to her pre-talent show mindset. A few people commented that she didn't need to have a talent show to read the poem she made for the wedding. She could have just read it any time as the bride. The reason I'm writing this post is because of something else that came up and led to a conversation. We had a vacation coming up, but she no longer wants to go on it. In the time since my first post, she's continued to have random mood swings due to thinking about Kate. Sometimes that's venting about how Kate would have nothing without her, or getting really quiet and distant, even while eating. She's also still upset at her girlfriends who she vented to about Kate. But when they disagreed and called her out for being bitter over a talent show no one forced her to have, she told me to cut off our friend group, along with blocking the producer and girlfriends too. When I disagreed, she became distant and said I was choosing them over her. When I asked Kate why this bothered her so much, she said that she tried to publish in the past a novel and that she didn't get any hand-me-downs. But when I reminded her that my friend was a producer on the side in his basement, she said, I should have known better to invite him because I should have known that he would have liked Kate's song. When I told her that I wouldn't block the producer or entire friend group, she said I was entitled like Kate and that she wanted a break because I didn't care about her. I told her that I love her, but I didn't think it was healthy to cut everyone off. I also told her that she should be happy for her friend because Kate was really grateful, but she didn't seem to care. She has since gone to stay with her parents and left some of her things in our apartment. I talked to my dad after she ignored my texts and calls for a few days, and he suggested bringing up an annulment because it had gone too far. Her parents have also ignored my calls, but I want to clarify Kate's text before I'm done. Kate wasn't arrogant or anything to Nancy. All she did was thank her for putting together the talent show that allowed her to network with the producer after the wedding, and she also offered to take her out to lunch as a thanks. There was no arrogance from Kate, and the producer is also engaged, as some people inquired about too. I'm just really surprised and hurt that her bitterness turned me into a bad guy for inviting my producer friend as if I was supposed to see into the future and not invite him. Update. We are currently in the process of a divorce. She's staying with her parents, and I've had some time to process and see things differently. I want to touch on two things that happened since my update. The first is a Facebook post she made about me and the guests. In her post, she said she was supposed to win and that it was an unwritten rule for the bride to win, as if wedding talent shows are normal. She also accused them of smiting her on her day when no one knew about the show beforehand except her participating friends. Then she accused me of taking Kate's side instead of comforting her as her new husband, but taking her side meant cutting off our friend group as she had in the aftermath. I don't know how her parents feel after she called out both sides of the guests, but I really don't care at this point. She wanted me to cut off my friend, Edward, and I wasn't going to do that. I talked to Edward recently about everything, including how she wanted to cut him off, and he couldn't believe how much it affected her. Nancy and I watched a football game at his house with him and his fiance a few months back, and he has a day job in an office. When I told him about how Nancy was jealous of Kate's big break, he couldn't believe it and said that he planned to let Kate use his audio interface to plug into her guitar and record a high-quality instrumental of her original song along with his microphone too. He also said he wasn't great at mixing and was taking online courses to learn, so he was going to suggest that she commission someone to mix and enhance the files they'd record because he was far from a professional. He's a really chill guy, but he couldn't stop laughing over how Nancy thought that he was all that. He only wanted to use his interface to give her a high-quality recording after learning that she didn't have equipment and recorded her original on her phone. He and his fiancée planned to have her over for dinner, just like they had me and Nancy over for football, and recorded in the basement afterwards. Looking back in hindsight, it's crazy how you can be blinded to things, but I never imagined just how crazy she could get. I didn't say this in my first two posts because I thought it might overshadow her actions, but she sometimes posts about women empowerment on her socials, and I recently thought about that for one reason. When I asked her why she wanted to have a talent show, she said she wanted to emphasize the importance of having good friends because they were important to a relationship. But as I look at it now, perhaps it was never about that. Nancy was bothered the second that Kate's song got a better reception than her, and she doubled down when she vented to two of her girlfriends after the wedding, who called her out for being jealous, and that made her demand I also cut them off. Am I the jerk for allowing the police in my home? So over the summer, my husband's son, Jay, stays with his mom. He's 16. He gets home and gets everything ready for school. I noticed his mom gave him a new gaming system, and I didn't say anything as he put it in his room. It's not uncommon for his mom to buy him things. The police show up at my house and ask to see both me and Jay. His dad is working. I let the police come in and they asked about his gaming system, and I tell him sure, that I saw him unpack it. Once Jay goes into the living room, I'm told that it's stolen. I freak out. I yell at Jay and the police arrest him and tell me I can come get him after the booking process. It will take a few hours. I let them take Jay and the gaming system. I was so overwhelmed with everything. I called my husband and he starts yelling at me because I let the police in the house and to take Jay. I got an earful about it, and my husband goes to the police station and it takes a long time for him to come home with Jay. My husband sends Jay to his room and yells at me about how I let this happen. I should have not let them into the house, and I shouldn't have told them Jay was home. I said why. He acts like it was common sense, and I should have found out more information. He then goes on to call me names. The fight turns into me saying, how was I supposed to know how to act? I was taught better than to cover for a criminal. My husband says Jay is not a criminal. I pointed out he was literally just arrested for stealing. My husband told me to get out. I'm staying with my sister and her husband right now because of this. They're just as much in shock as me because they never would have thought to be rude to the police either and not let them in. You're the jerk. In the future, do not talk to the police. Get a lawyer and only talk to them with your lawyer present. You should not have allowed them in without a warrant, and you should not have allowed either yourself or your stepson to talk to them without a lawyer. And you really should not have allowed your stepson to talk to the police without one or the other of his parents there. Just to be clear, Jay was accused of a crime, not convicted of one. So for you to assume he's a criminal automatically would bother me too if that were my son. Plus, you don't know the exact circumstances as to how the console was obtained. His mom could have bought it from a third party for all you know. So again, who are you to call him a criminal when you just made an assumption based off what the police told you? You failed Jay in a big way. Sorry, you're the jerk. You're the jerk. Never, 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 never let the police into your house without a warrant. Never let the police talk to your kid without you or your lawyer. It may only be a simple misunderstanding. The chances of the cops being crooked or planting something to make a case may be slim. But if that slim occurrence should happen and the police decide to ruin your day, you can lose everything you own to civil forfeiture, and your entire reality can come crashing down because you were trying to not be rude. The police are not your friends. You can be civil, but do not let them in the door, because no matter how nice you are still considered a possible perp. Wait, OP is not the jerk for not knowing Reddit's rules of engagement with the police. People acting like everyone knows this. Meanwhile, in the real world, normal people let cops in. Get out of here with all these you're the jerk votes. I agree. I'm from the Netherlands, and I would also let the police in, even offer them tea or coffee. I'm really wondering how the US can be the land of the free with all those reactions. Exactly. I was looking for a comment like this. Belgian here. The police are here to help us. I would let them in, but apparently the US is a completely different story. To all the people saying she's the jerk, basically, you're the jerk. The police didn't randomly show up at her house. They didn't randomly figure the kid had stolen property. They had a reason why. They explained it to her, and she, being a reasonable person, did what was right. Too many people watching too much television thinking that asking for a lawyer will stop the police from doing their job. It doesn't. How many people have lawyers standing by on retainer? And no one is addressing the kid either stole, had stolen property, or both. And the husband is a major jerk. His kid is a criminal, allegedly, but instead of dealing with that, he tosses his wife out. Bad move. She did the right thing. I wonder how many of you would change your views if it was your $1,000 gaming system that was stolen. Can I just say, what the heck? If the police knock on my door in a home that I own where I know I'm following the law, I'm going to let them in, because that's what law-abiding citizens do. If someone living in my home is a thief or a criminal, that's their problem. Don't bring it into my home. OP, you're not the jerk. Your husband and your stepkid are for putting you in a position where they would want you to lie to the police. If you don't want problems with the police, then quit breaking the law. It's not what law-abiding citizens do, it's what naive citizens do. You are not some noble person, you are a fool. Okay, so because I choose to not break the law and I would allow law enforcement in my home, I'm the fool? Okay, buddy, I see your logic. You sure told me. I'm not calling you a fool, but you have a very naive mindset here. Please do some research on this subject. Most people in law enforcement and the judicial system follow the same advice and tell it to their families and friends. Don't talk to the cops without an attorney, period. Doesn't matter what you did or didn't do. Innocent people go to jail every day. Many get wrongly convicted and serve prison time. It can all start with a legitimate mistake or misunderstanding. Doesn't have to be malicious on the cops' part, though it often is. Anything you say can and will be used against you if it will help solve a case. I've seen it play out in a courtroom. It happens every single day. From a game theory standpoint, yes, you are a fool. You have nothing to gain by allowing them in. Absolutely nothing. You don't get a gold star for going along or an X mark for not. There is no citizen scorecard. If they have evidence, they can present it to a judge for a warrant. It's not disrespectful in any way to demand a warrant. If the charges have merit, they can convince a judge. Yes, you are a fool. You're putting faith in someone for no other reason than they're wearing a uniform. I back the blue in most cases, but will absolutely not give one the chance to change my mind. I don't break the law either, but I will always exercise my rights. You are a fool, and a pretentious one at that. Karen demands I drive 12 hours to pick up her son. This morning, as I was getting ready for work, I received a Facebook Messenger message at like 6 a.m. This is from a friend on Facebook. This is someone I went to church with for a few years, about 10 years ago. We are friendly on Facebook, liking and occasionally comment on each other's posts, but I haven't seen this woman in person in 10 years. The message asked me if I could do her a favor. I said I would love to if I was able to. She tells me she's getting custody of her son today. She then proceeds to ask me if I still live in the state that I live in. I said yes. She said that she needs a ride from her hometown to the town I live in back to her hometown, and she needs the ride today. She then asked if she could call me, and I said no, I was almost at work and couldn't talk, but I would keep messaging her. I googled where she told me she lived. It's a 3.5-hour drive to her town. This is the amount of time Google said it would take, not taking into account bathroom breaks, gas fill-ups, traffic, or anything. Straight time, 3.5 hours. So what she needed me to do was drive 3.5 hours to get her, pick her up, drive 3.5 hours to get her son, and then drive her and her son back 3.5 hours. Then I would need to drive myself home the last 3.5 hours. So it would be over a 12-hour day of just driving. And she said that she is short on cash, so she would not be able to chip in for gas or food or anything. I told her that I was very happy about her getting custody of her son, but that I had work today and that there was no way that I could help her today. She then became upset and said, "You told me you would do me a favor," which I went back to the message and I saw that I said, "I would love to if I'm able to." And I told her I was sorry, but that this is last minute and I have work and couldn't miss an entire day, minutes before I was supposed to show up. I don't feel like I'm the jerk in this situation, but the way that she reacted to me telling her I couldn't help makes me feel like I am. Also, I should add that I am almost 3 months pregnant and I have a broken leg. Both of these things I shared on Facebook, and both of these things I know she knew about because she had commented on the posts. So, am I the jerk? Obviously not the jerk. This woman sounds totally off. No wonder she has nobody else to ask. That lady may be short on cash, but she's sure long on nerve. And consider this, she can't get herself from point A to point B without the assistance of a virtual stranger. Are you certain she was granted custody, or was she roping you into custodial interference? Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you help her or not? Please let us know. I'd screenshot her ridiculous messages and share them on Reddit so everyone can laugh at her. Am I the jerk for changing the way my mother-in-law looks in my wedding photos? This happened at my wedding. I am very detail-oriented and planned our wedding with my husband very meticulously. Everything was color coordinated and everything was aesthetically pleasing. Our colors were pink and black. I wanted parents and grandparents to also wear our wedding colors so the wedding photos would be cohesive. I specifically spoke with each person and told them the color scheme and how I would very much like everyone to color coordinate. Nobody had an issue with this, so I thought. Both sets of husband's grandparents went out shopping to find clothes to explicitly match our wedding party. I thought that was so cute and appreciated it immensely. My mom and I went shopping for my grandparents because they asked us to, so they were also matching. I offered to take my mother-in-law shopping to pick out something to wear, but she declined and said she would go with her friends. I said okay and kind of forgot about it. The night of the rehearsal, my mom asks my mother-in-law what she's wearing, and she responds with a long dress in the wedding colors. Next day, I'm getting ready in the bridal suite, and my mother-in-law moseys on up and is wearing a royal purple ball gown. She doesn't wear makeup that often, and I was shocked to see she was wearing neon blue eyeshadow and bright pink lipstick. Her husband wore a matching tie. I was livid, but ignored it because I didn't want it to ruin my big day. My father-in-law asked me how he looked during pictures, and I responded, "You and mother-in-law stick out like a big sore purple thumb." He asked what that was supposed to mean, and I told him that they knew the dress code. Now they looked out of place. He said he wore what was given to him, and he would relay the message to my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law approached me later in the night and asked me about my issue. I asked her why she lied about her outfit choice. She said she never bought a dress that would go with our wedding colors and planned on wearing the purple dress she found. It was more true to her, and that's what mattered. I said that's fine. I'll fix the pictures in post-production. She said I would not adjust anything. They paid for the pictures, and I would not alter anything. I said any picture I post with her in it will be altered on my end, so they have no control of what I do. I excused myself and enjoyed the rest of my wedding. My mother-in-law has a habit of trying to make things about her and make little comments like, "Well, I am the mother of the groom, my opinion counts." Or, "I can make decisions too, I'm the mother of the groom and we are helping pay for this wedding." My parents paid for 70% of the wedding. My in-laws paid for the photographer and the rehearsal dinner. The photographer was their friend and only charged them $800 for the whole night. The rehearsal dinner cost $300 because they chose the cheapest options for everything possible. I asked my parents, his parents, my grandparents, and his grandparents to please wear black and pink. All the men wore black tuxes and pink or black ties. The women, minus my mother-in-law, wore black dresses or pink dresses. No other guests had stipulations to their attire except, please wear formal attire. Edit. My father-in-law knew about the color scheme and went along with my mother-in-law's plan because he wanted to prove a point. My mother-in-law went out and purchased the purple dress when she had a beautiful black dress in her closet. I can't stand overly controlled weddings like this because of reasons like this, but it does sound like she did it on purpose to annoy you. So, not the jerk. Not the jerk. Her big eyesore didn't turn out the way she wanted. Those are your photos, not hers. If they didn't intend those photos as a gift, meaning you get free reign, then they should have made that clear way before the wedding. Not the jerk. If it were a simple misunderstanding, I could have given her the benefit of the doubt, but the fact that she straight up lied to you about what she was wearing makes her the jerk 100%. She knew what she was doing, and from the sound of it, she went out of her way to be as ostentatious as possible. This is your wedding, and it's not about her. I don't think asking people to color coordinate is an unreasonable ask at all, but it's like she went out of her way to draw as much attention to herself as possible. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know. Confession, I've never been to a single wedding in all of my life, and I definitely don't plan to. Am I the jerk for not acting like a mom to my son? I know this sounds bad, but let me explain a little. I'm 35, female, have a 14-year-old son. I do everything I can for my son and make sure he has everything he needs. Lately, he's been acting out a little at home and school, so I decided to sit him down to try to figure out what was happening. He's my only child, and his dad and I are still together. I tried to sit him down and ask why he was acting out. I was concerned if maybe it had something to do with myself or his father, but he wouldn't budge. I asked him was there any issues going on at school, because if there was, I would be more than happy to help him. I was scared there would be bullying at his school, and I was prepared to transfer him to another school if necessary. He said there was no bullying and he hadn't had any issues. He just felt like 14-year-olds should act out a little. I told him his behavior was not allowed in my house. His behavior consisted of swearing at myself and his father, at his teacher, and much more. I tried so hard to discipline him as much as possible. So here's where the issue started. After a little fussing with my son, he said, "My life would be better if I didn't have a mother." I was extremely hurt. I said, "Okay," and went on with my day. I prepared dinner for myself and his father, not for my son. When my son smelt the food, he came downstairs and asked where his was. I responded, "I made dinner for myself and your dad. Since life is easier without a mom, there's some heatable food in the freezer." My son went absolutely crazy. He stormed to his room and did not come out until today morning. Normally, I would take him to school, but today I did not. He came downstairs expecting his breakfast that I make for him every morning, but there wasn't any. He said, "Where's my breakfast?" I responded, "Your mother would normally do that for you, but if life is easier without one, you'll need to prepare your own breakfast. Also, take the bus to and from school." After a few swears, he made himself some cereal and took the bus. I suppose my son called his grandmother, my mother-in-law, about this, and I received many calls saying I was a horrible mother, that I'm starving him and being petty. I thought this was a good way to discipline my kid and make him grateful for everything he has. I'm starting to think I messed up. So, am I the jerk? Edit for info. Later today when he gets home from school, I plan on sitting him down to have a conversation that what he said really hurt me. I do not plan to bring up the fact he called my mother-in-law. Edit 2. My son had a half day, so I texted him asking if he would like me to pick him up or the bus. He texted back saying he wanted me to get him, so I did. In the car, he immediately apologized for what he said, and he said that his friends were acting out, so he wanted to fit in. His friends got suspended today for something they did and they wanted my son to join. My son did not, and he said he was sorry for how he was acting. I also apologized for my actions. Edit 3. I want to say thank you very much for your comments. When my son got home, he cleaned his room and even offered to help with dinner to learn to cook. In only a few hours, our relationship has gotten better and our communication has also gotten better. Not the jerk. It's not like you actually deprived him of anything. He still had access to food and a way to get to school. It was definitely petty, but he wasn't harmed in any way, and maybe sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. OP. I absolutely agree what I was doing was very petty, but I could not think of any other solution. He's not allowed to play on his video games, but I still give him access to his phone because you never know when there will be an emergency. That sounds fair, and I don't think the pettiness is necessarily bad in this situation, as long as you actually talk to him as well. A big sound, not the jerk. I don't think she's being petty. She gave her son exactly what he asked for. At best, to be malicious compliance. I would also call mother-in-law and tell her to stay out of your family's business. Not the jerk. He's 14, he can feed himself. He isn't being kept home from school, he can take the bus. You would be the jerk if you kept this going for weeks, but doing it for a couple of days to help him realize all the things you do for him and appreciate them better is actually a really good life lesson. And it's natural consequences. He doesn't want a mom? You are letting him have his wish. But definitely, after a day or two, you should then have a conversation. But your edit says you are already planning to do that. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her son? Please let us know. I got suspended in 8th grade for telling my teacher he looked like Snoop Dogg. Everyone in class laughed, but he didn't think it was funny. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.